series. And so what I want to do is I want to preview, or I want to prepare you for this series with just saying that sometimes it's amazing how you can just put two words together and everything just clicks. You ever gotten that before? You know, where somebody just says something that articulates everything you've always felt? Let me give you an example. You know, there's been something in my life that I've tried to live by, like my whole life, and then I heard somebody say it. They just made this, they had this expression, this phrase, that suddenly, have you ever had it, where suddenly I was like, I believe that, and I've always believed that, and that's been my whole life. I've only just heard about it, but my whole life is that comment. Have you ever had that? This was mine. It was when my dad told me, this was later on, like when I was in Bible college, things like that, my dad just happened to drop this little line that just, I was like, yes, that's in my whole life. My dad said, don't do two stupid things at the same time. And I was like, yes, that's my life. Like, you know, like I believe that. I've always believed that. I've never heard of that before, but I 100% agree. You know, don't do two stupid things at the same time. If you're going to do stupid things, do them one at a time. You know, just and so that was one of those things that I just heard it and I was like, yes, that explains so much. And so what I want to do is I want to give you guys the title of this series that we're going to walk through for this whole month. And I'm not saying that your world's going to be shocked or anything like that. But for some, just putting these two words together is a light bulb moment. For some, just putting these two words together, just combining these words in this way, you'll be like, yep, I haven't heard that, but I 100% see it and I agree. Because for this whole month, we're walking through a series and it's called Uncomfortable Growth. Uncomfortable growth. And the reason why we want to talk about this is for a lot of people, especially Christians or people who are spiritual on their spiritual journey, is that what they anticipate is their growth to be comfortable. As a matter of fact, there's this moment that most Christians walk into when they're suddenly shocked at how uncomfortable progress is. Where they assume that everything good, everything easy is from God, and that God would never allow anything uncomfortable or difficult in our life. And if there is something uncomfortable or difficult, it's the devil and it's not God. But we're going to talk about uncomfortable growth, this idea that moving forward, that growing, that maturing, that developing is going to be uncomfortable, but it's going to be worth it. It's going to be useful and helpful. Now, before I get any more into my message, I want to talk about a very specific and a very personal area of uncomfortable growth for this church. And that has to do with our youth director, Patrick Braun, who's right here. Patrick, wave your hand. This is Patrick, everybody. Patrick's awesome. And Patrick, for the last 2 years, has been running our youth and detour ministries and has served with his whole heart for the youth in our church. But not recently, there's been for a little bit of time now, Patrick has been approached by another Victory Church in Saskatchewan, and they've asked if they could hire him on as their associate pastor. And so Patrick has been released, and he's going there, which is awesome. It's awesome for him. He gets to really live out some uncomfortable growth. Because let me tell you, when I started my ministry career, you know, I started living out my calling. I was a youth intern in Penticton, British Columbia, and then I got a call to go to a church in northern Alberta to become their junior associate pastor. And that's how I began. And so here's Patrick. You know, he served here faithfully for the last 2 years, and with just an incredible servant's heart. And has been approached to go be an associate pastor at the Yorkton Victory Church. And we're blessed to be able to release him to go help Pastor Mark up there and, to step into the next area of his ministry. So we're so proud of you, Patrick, and we're so thankful for the time that you've served in this church. It's awesome. All right. But that's enough about him. No, just kidding. Now we're going to continue on. Now it's going to be all about me. No, just kidding. No, we're going to continue on in the message. And what I want you to know is that this idea of growing isn't just a physical one. It's also a spiritual one. Is that for a lot of people, salvation is the finish line. You know, they lived their life in darkness. They step into the light. They get Jesus in their heart, and they think, yes, I'm done. I've accomplished it. I've finished it. That's absolutely not the case. The Bible, especially the New Testament, is filled with these pictures, with these illustrations, these ideas that we as Christians, as spiritual people, as Christ-like faith-walking followers, we're supposed to grow and develop and mature. The Bible is full of illustrations like seeds being planted and then growing and then treeing and then producing fruit for harvest and equating that to our walk. There's Bible verses about vineyards and how we're supposed to stay connected to the vine and then we're supposed to grow. There's a lot of sheep ones like that. We're like lambs and then we're sheep and then we're following the shepherds and then it develops that way. There's other ones like building houses. Like when you get saved, it's like you're building a house. And the salvation isn't the house. The salvation is the foundation. And then we build brick by brick in our Christian walk in this way. Jesus gave probably the most famous illustration in John 3:3, where he talks about salvation as being born again. Born again and being like a child, being like a baby and growing and then developing and then maturing. Speaking of babies, prepare yourselves, get your ahs ready because I've got a picture to show you. Yeah. I told you. That's me. Yeah, the ahs came back. Yeah, it's like, oh. Yeah, no, that's me. That's me as a 3-year-old. And, it's kind of, I was a very formal little guy. You can see that with the bow tie. And it's actually really funny for me because when I look at this, I have no memory of this. I'm about 3 years old. I don't remember, my little bow tie and sitting and smiling so nicely. I don't remember where this was taken. I don't remember the context or anything like that. I don't know what we ate that day afterwards, although you probably can't see it here, but if you zoom in, which we're not going to do, you can see that I've got a tomato soup stain on my shirt. So I know what I was eating. But even though I have very little connection to that person, that's me, but like, is it me? Like it is, but like, it's so drastically different than who I am now that it's actually hard for me to relate. But there are some little things that maybe you wouldn't notice, but I do. So for example, I've got my hair swoops that way, and it's like, oh, I see that, that's me. I've got an asymmetrical smile. I don't smile both ways. I smile on one side, like now, so yeah, that's me. That's me as a baby or as a 3-year-old. And what's bizarre to me, even looking at this picture, is that as I look, I see, okay, he's got eyes, he's got teeth, he's got a mouth, he's got shoulders, he's got arms coming down there, he's got a torso, he's got a brain, I'm assuming, in there. It'll be a couple of years till it grows. That little boy has all the things I have now. It's just the difference between that little boy and me is development. So that I've developed, I've grown, I've matured, and I've become not a different person because it's still the same me, but I've become a more developed person. And when Jesus says you must be born again, it's fascinating that he equates the beginning of salvation as if you were born, as if you were a child, a baby. And then you're going to grow. That doesn't mean that, if you're in this room and you got saved in your 40s, that doesn't mean like, oh, you have to be a baby. It's just that Jesus is describing you as like a baby. And so what I want to do is we're going to walk through in these next couple weeks, all through the month of June, is we're going to talk about the development, the growth that we walk through as Christians. The first stage is, I'd call it the baby stage, but that's not exactly accurate. The first stage would be called the development stage. The development stage, or let's just be honest, it's the baby stage. Is the first stage of Christianity is the baby stage. Jesus said so. This is when you get saved, you get born again. And when you're born as a baby. That's just the only way it is. And that stage is marked by a couple key features, especially in our Christian walk. A baby needs to be fed, and a baby needs to be led. And so when a baby is born, all it can do is cry, and all you can really do to help it is to feed it. And so when someone first gets saved, that's the first mark. And I just want you to know that's a really important thing. It's very, very important to feed a baby. It's also very, very important to feed a brand new Christian. It's at the start. It's what we need to do. The problem is if someone stays a baby. But I want to get into the Word of God. I jumped ahead a little too much. We're going to get back into this because I want you to see this. we're going to go to Genesis chapter 47, which is not a baby passage at all. There's no babies in Genesis 47. But what this is this is the start of the nation of Israel. This is how the nation of Israel came to be. We're going to use this as another illustration. Genesis 47, verse 13 begins like this. Meanwhile, the famine became... so the background for this is that the people of Israel are nomadic, and they're living in the land of Canaan. And so they're tribal, they're living in tents, they're moving around. But there is an Israelite who is the governor of Egypt. And there's a huge famine that's about to take place, and all the land of Egypt and Canaan is about to run out of food. They're about to have no food whatsoever. And so the people of Canaan, or the Israelites who are living in Canaan, are going to go to Egypt because the Israelite governor is going to feed them. And it begins like this in verse 13. It says, meanwhile, the famine became so severe that all the food was used up, and the people were starving throughout the lands of Egypt and Canaan. By selling grain to the people, Joseph eventually collected all the money in Egypt and Canaan, and he put the money in Pharaoh's treasury. When the people of Egypt and Canaan ran out of money, all the Egyptians came to Joseph. Our money is gone, they cried, but please give us food, or we will die before your very eyes. Joseph replied, since your money is gone, bring me your livestock, and I will give you food in exchange for your livestock. So they brought their livestock to Joseph in exchange for food. In exchange for their horses, flocks of sheep and goats, herds of cattle and donkeys, Joseph provided them with food for another year. But that year ended, and the next year they came again and said, we cannot hide the truth from you, my lord. Our money is gone, and all our livestock and cattle are yours. We have nothing left to give but our bodies and our land. Why should we die before your very eyes? Buy us and our land in exchange for food. We offer our land and ourselves as slaves for Pharaoh. Just give us grain so we may live and not die, and so the land does not become empty and desolate. So Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for the Pharaoh. All the Egyptians sold them their fields because the famine was so severe, and soon all the land belonged to Pharaoh. As for the people, he made them all slaves from one end of Egypt to the other. The only land he did not buy was the land belonging to the priests. They received an allotment of food directly from Pharaoh, so they didn't need to sell their land. Then Joseph said to the people, look, today I have bought you and your land for Pharaoh. I will provide you with seed so you can plant the fields. Then when you harvest it, 1/5 of your crop will belong to Pharaoh. You may keep the remaining 4/5 as seed for your fields and food for you, your household, and your little ones. Verse 25, you have saved our lives, they exclaimed. May it please you, my Lord, to let us be Pharaoh's servants. Doesn't sound very baby-like at all. But this is the beginning. This is the birthplace. This is the start of the nation of Israel. This is where they begin, is they go from tribal nomads in Canaan, and then they move into Egypt. And they start, actually, for a really good reason. The reason why they go there is because there was a desperate need. They were starving in Canaan. And for a lot of Christians, what draws you into church is that there was a problem out there. A lot of people come to church when they hit rock bottom. A lot of people come to church when they're they don't know what to do, and they just feel like they're starving. They feel like they're drowning. And so they make their way to church hoping for some kind of relief because they anticipate that this is a place where they can be fed. They anticipate this is a place where that need, that desire in their heart can be filled and met with God. And that's what brings you here. And that's a really good thing. That's a fantastic thing. That's a great reason to come to church, is that there's a problem, there's a hunger in your heart that you can't solve. And so you come to church, and then you hear about the bread from heaven. You hear about Jesus, and you hear about how he can save you, and he can provide satisfaction for your soul. And you can be fed. They came to Egypt because they wanted to eat and not die. They didn't want to stay where they were, so they went where they were provided for. They went where they were fed. And a lot of Christians, that's how we begin. You get saved, and then you come to a church. And then in this church, you don't know how to feed yourself, you don't know how to provide for yourself, and so you rely almost entirely on someone like me who can actually, this is where you need to go, this is what you need to read, this is how you need to walk through this faith journey. And that is really, really good. Because a baby can't feed itself. A baby can't or doesn't even know what it needs. You need the parent to actually feed it. And just like a baby who needs to be fed, so do Christians. Christians need to be fed. What do I mean by that? A lot of people, they get saved, they get really excited, don't they? Maybe you've seen it, maybe it was you. They get saved, they get really excited about the things of God. And what do they want to do? They want to read their Bible. And because they're Canadians in the year 2025, the first thing they want to do is they want to read the end of the book. They want to see how it ends. How does it end? The problem is that if you start at the end of the book, you get saved. Wow, the Bible, excellent. How does it end? You read the book of Revelation, you're like, what? This makes no sense. Turns out this book is really complicated. I don't understand the scrolls and the seals and the thunder and the lightning and the Armageddons and the end of the world. This book is complicated. They close it. They never open it again. If you're new to Christianity and you're in the Bible is really exciting stage and you're like, maybe I should read the book of Revelation, don't start there. The book of Revelation assumes that you've read the whole book and understood it. That's what you need to read the book of Revelation. Also, if you're brand new to Christianity, you're like, I want to read the Bible. I'm going to start in Genesis. Don't start in Genesis. By chapter 2, it gets confusing. Because like you read the first chapter, you're like, okay, this makes sense. I've heard of some of this before. You read chapter 2, it's a poetic retelling of the first chapter. You're like, what's going on? Did the earth get created twice? What's happening? It gets confusing immediately. The Bible is meant to be read with Jesus at the center. You start with Jesus, and then you go to the sides. That's what you're supposed to do. I need to tell you that, because that doesn't come naturally. Because unless you know that that's what you need to do, you wouldn't do that. And so just like a baby doesn't know what, actually, I shouldn't say a baby doesn't know what they need. A baby knows what it wants. But a baby doesn't know what it needs. So in church, it's like when you're a brand new Christian, you need to be fed by someone who knows what it is that you need. You need to be fed. It's not up to the baby to dictate its diet. Right? Any parents in the room? I know we got some. Any parents in the room? Is it up to the child to dictate what kind of food they should eat? No, thank you. For a second there. I was like, is it up to the child to decide what a healthy sleep schedule is? No, why not? The child, it's their own person. You know, they've got hopes and dreams and desires and all those things. The child knows what they want. Why shouldn't the child be in charge of their own sleep schedule? Because it's not good for them. Because they actually don't know what it is that they need. You know, a child knows exactly what they want to eat. They want to eat chocolate chip cookies and chicken fingers. That's what they want to eat. That's what little Jesse wants to eat. That's why little Jesse isn't little anymore. It's not up to the child's preferences. Why? Because if it was only up to their preferences, they would feed themselves unhealthily. And so even though when they're being fed by a caring, loving adult, they're not getting fed their preferences, they're getting fed what they need. And so in church, it's the same way. When someone's a brand new Christian, they need someone to feed them. Why? Because they're so young in the faith, they don't actually know what's healthy. And it's amazing how many Christians who are untethered, Christians who are not being parented, Christians who aren't being led or fed, they move immediately, and you guys have seen this, they move immediately and drastically into conspiracy theories. Why? That's a good question, isn't it? Why? And the reason why, I think, is my own opinion, the reason why I think Christians do that, new Christians in particular, why they do that, is because they were living in a world that they didn't understand. They become saved, and now they understand a part. And then they start looking at the rest of the world and say, what else is a lie? They look at the rest of the world and say, what else is there? I discovered in Christianity there's more than meets the eye. There's more that's going on. All the things that I've been told previously in my life of darkness isn't true, and now I'm seeing that there's more. What else is there? And then suddenly the earth is hollow, filled with lizard people. That's also the Queen of England. Like, it's just crazy. Following their preferences. Not actually consuming what it is that they need. They're consuming the things that they want. In the Bible, it describes that as they say they seek out teachers who tell them, or who scratch their itching ears, who tell them all the little things that they want to hear. It's an important step in a Christian's development to be fed. To be fed what? To be fed Jesus. Jesus specifically. It's like, what do you need to know? You need to know about him. You need to know what he looks like. You need to know what he sounds like. You need to know how he speaks through his word. You need to know what the call of God on your life is through Christ. That's what you need. You need a steady diet of Jesus Christ. Amen. That's what you need to develop. That's what you need to grow. You need to be fed. You also need to be led. You need to be taught how to do things. You need to be taught this is how you're supposed to pray. This is how to actually read the Bible. I did like a one-sentence thing with you already. You need to be taught how to do that. You need to learn and grow in a safe way. Ever seen those toddler leashes? I mean, make fun of them all you want, but kids get run over less. Just saying. You got those toddler leashes, you've seen them at Disneyland, you see them at the mall, you know, the kids got a little harness on, mom and dad got the thing, and what are they doing? You can go this far, but not farther. You can go with me anywhere I go, but you're not going to get farther than this from me. And I just want you to know, as much as we might ridicule those things, man, is it ever safer? Oh, kids these days, they don't run around. Yeah, they don't get hit by cars either. Like, just saying. Christians, when you first step into faith, man, you need that too. You need that. It's an important part of your development. You need someone who is in your life who can say, you can go this far, but not farther, and then I'm pulling you back, and I'm pulling you back to Jesus. You can go this far and not farther, then I'm going to pull you back. And man, over time, we're going to be able to take that leash off, and I'm going to be able to trust that you're going to go to safe places, but especially initially, new Christians need to be fed. They need to be fed Jesus. They need to be led, and they need people around them that can take them where they need to go. And just so you know, in this church, it's very unlikely going to be me. That's how come we promote so hard. We promote small groups. Is because we need to make sure that every person has someone who is feeding them and leading them and helping them and growing them and guiding them. I only got you for half an hour once a week. You need a whole lot more than that. You need more. You need to grow. We need to do it together. It's going to be uncomfortable. Man, you're going to be spoon-fed. I want the whole bottle, not yet. Man, I want the cookies on the top shelf. It's like, not yet. We'll get there. We'll grow there. But right now, what you need Jesus. You need to start right here. You need to start at the basics. You can go this far, then no farther, then you got to come back. It's an extremely important stage in a Christian's growth. Is you need to be fed by someone, and you need to be led by someone. The people of Israel, they were starving. They were starving. And so they went to Joseph because Joseph could feed them. And at the start, it was all good. Did you notice there it actually says that it was the Egyptians that were slaves? Did you catch that? It was the Egyptians. Actually, the Israelites weren't slaves at all. And as a matter of fact, what we see is all the land went to the priests, or all the land went to Pharaoh, except for the priests. What we see later is that Joseph, because he's got all of these Israelites, these nomads who are coming to settle, he gives them land and he sets them up and they start to prosper. They start doing really, really well. They start developing themselves as a nation, and it's powerful. The only slaves in Egypt were Egyptians. That's what it says. The only slaves in Egypt were Egyptians for a long time. But then something happened. See, what I want to show you is the danger of the baby stage. Because in Exodus 1, chapter 8, or in Exodus chapter 1, verse 8, it says this. So the people of Israel are living, it's called in the land of Goshen in Egypt, as a free, prospering, and powerful people. And then in Exodus chapter 1, verse 8, it says this. Eventually, a new king came to power in Egypt who knew nothing about Joseph or what he had done. And he said to his people, look, the people of Israel now outnumber us and are stronger than we are. We must make a plan to keep them from growing anymore. What's the dangerous part about the baby stage? The dangerous part about the baby stage, if you are dependent on someone else to feed you and lead you, the dangerous part is the person who is feeding you and leading you, and I say this fully. The dangerous part about being totally dependent on someone else feeding you and leading you is that sometimes the person will take advantage of you. That's what it says. Man, it was great when they were being fed by Joseph. It says they grew powerful. It says they started outnumbering the Egyptians. It was going really good. But then someone who they were just as dependent on wanted to control them. And man, it does not work out well. And for hundreds of years, the Israelites are enslaved by kings who wanted to control them and who controlled them with how they were fed. And so as Christians, one of the reasons why I would encourage you, why it's important for you to grow out, not out of your dependency on Jesus, but out on your dependency for man to feed you. about Jesus is because as awesome as I am, some people aren't as awesome as I am. No, I'll just put it this way. For as awesome as I am, there's no way that I can provide everything you need. As awesome, as fantastic of a preacher as I am, I can't provide everything you need. I was waiting for the applause. No, I'm kidding. I was kidding. That was a joke. I'm sorry. For as great as I might be and as much as you might like me, I can tell you right now, I cannot give you everything you need. And if you are entirely dependent on me to tell you what the Bible means, to tell you what Jesus says, to pray for you, to help you, if you want to, that's a great place to start. But if your intention is to stay that way, I am not equipped for you for life, for everything that you can do, for every situation you can walk through. I can't be the one who feeds you that way. That's why, again, it's so important that we do small groups, that you get into other groups where there's other people that can speak into your life and help you, feed you, grow you, lead you. And then eventually, so that you can start feeding and helping, growing, and leading other people. It's because one, what if the person who's leading you is trying to control you? That's not great. Two, even if they're great, I cannot be the source of everything that you need. What a disaster it would be if a baby wanted to stay a baby. What a horror that would be if you saw a 45-year-old man in the baby aisle and he says, "This is my favorite brand of formula." "Oh yeah, your kid likes it?" "No, I like it." That's wrong. That's messed up. There's something broken. It's great to start as a baby. It's beautiful. It's lovely. When a baby cries, it fills your heart with compassion, especially if it's your baby. When a baby cries because he's hungry, you're moved to feed it and to love it. When a grown-up cries because they're hungry, it makes you confused. You're like, this is wrong. What's happened? This isn't the way it's supposed to be. Surely you shouldn't be crying because you're hungry unless something is desperately wrong with your situation. So many Christians, they get saved, they want to stay as babies. They want to stay being fed. They want to stay in that space. Instead of being fed and led, they get fat and lazy. Never wanting to do anything, wanting all their needs catered to them. Church, if you're in this room and you're a new Christian, if you've been saved less than 5 years, if you're a new Christian, I want to read you a passage of scripture that's aimed at you. For you in the development stage. For you who are trying to lead and grow and be fed and led, to what end? It's from the book of Hebrews chapter 12. And in verse 1, it goes like this. It says, therefore. Now, therefore means because of everything we just talked about, because of everything that came before it. It says, so therefore, you as new believers, you as Christians who are in that development stage, it says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up. And let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. We do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith. Because of the joy awaiting him, he endured the cross, disregarding its shame. Now he is seated at the place of honor beside God's throne. Think of all the hostility he endured from sinful people. Then you won't become weary and give up. What are we supposed to do? We're called to grow. We know that growth will be uncomfortable. And this is what he says. He says, therefore, he says, since we're surrounded by the crowd of witnesses, let us strip off every weight that slows us down. You as Christians, you as new Christians, you as mature Christians, what should you do? You should strip off the weight that slows you down. And it says the sin that so easily ensnares you. How long? How long will you sit under it? How long will you endure it? How many more sermons do you need to hear before you change? How many more sermons do you need to hear before you'll start loving your neighbor? How many more sermons do I need to tell you before you'll start forgiving each other? How many more times? We're supposed to grow. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be difficult, absolutely, but it's going to be worth it. It's going to be good. It's going to help. It says, let's take off the weights. You want to grow? This is how. It says, take off the weight that slows you down. Let's run with endurance the race God set before us. How do we do that? We do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith. Keep your eyes on him. Keep your eyes fixed on Jesus. Take the weights off. Keep your eye on Jesus. Don't give up. Don't become weary. Man, you want to grow up in the faith. Oh, you should be fed. Absolutely. You need to get people around you that are going to give you not what you want, but what you need. What you need is Jesus. You're going to be led. You need to be led. You need to be shown where to go, how to go, what to do. But man, you're not supposed to stay there. You're supposed to look at your heart, and you're supposed to look and find the things that are weighing you down, slowing you down, and you're supposed to let them go. You're supposed to let go of the sin. You're supposed to let go of the weight, the burden. You're supposed to keep your eyes fixed on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects your faith. And then don't get weary and don't give up. Man, why would it say that? Man, you think after you take your weights off and you got your eyes fixed on Jesus, that's all you got to do. But it says, no, even then, it's going to grow wearisome. You're going to want to give up. It says, don't do it. Hang on. Keep going. Keep growing. Why? Because, man, we're on a mission. There's something for us to do, even as individuals and as a church. There is a call that we need to accomplish. Man, there's 30,000 people in Moose Jaw in spiritual darkness. There's 30,000 people in Moose Jaw whose spirits are starving, who don't know how to feed themselves, who all they know is the darkness and the emptiness and the shame of their own soul. That's all they have. They don't know about the light and the hope and the freedom and the love of Jesus Christ. And man, our call, our mission as individuals and as a church is to lead people to know him, love him, and to serve him. To have their life radically transformed by the grace of the gospel, to have their life radically rearranged and restored, that the weight of their sin would be lifted, that their eyes would be fixed on him, that they also wouldn't give up. Man, church, we are growing. We are growing. We know we're growing physically. Once again, we're packed. Here we are. But man, there's so many more people that need what you have. And man, 3-year-old Jesse, he could do a lot. He could smile, he could look cute, but man, there's so much more I can do now because I've grown. And man, it's great where you are. But man, we can't have you stay where you are. We need you to grow. We desperately need you to grow because we need people that can lead and feed others. We need people that can model the love, the life, the light of Jesus Christ. We need people that have their eyes fixed on Jesus. We need people that don't get weary, who don't give up, who keep running the race set before them, because it's not just about you and I anymore. Man, a baby, it's all about the baby, isn't that true? But man, as you grow, your eyes get off yourself and it starts getting on the people around you. It starts getting on your neighbors and your friends and your coworkers and your family members and those people that you can see are struggling. You can see they're weighed down by the sin and the guilt and their shame. And we need to lead them to Jesus as well. Man, 30,000 people in Moose Jaw who don't know Jesus. Man, why not us? Why not you and me? Why don't we show them? Why don't we feed them? Why don't we love them? Why don't we model Jesus to them and show them how life was supposed to be lived? Grace, mercy, and hope.